This is the Up on the Soapbox podcast, a production of Soapbox Marketing Communication. The foundational goal for the Soapbox is to host and foster a simple, yet dynamic online environment which helps initiate and develop personal business connections by way of purposeful, one-on-one conversation. The Soapbox is redefining how communication is done in the promotional products industry. I am Brett Schaefer, and along with my partner and co-host Dan Pickett, we bring you Up on the Soapbox. Welcome to Up on the Soapbox, episode 4. I'm Brett Schaefer. I'm your co-host today with my partner in crime, Dan Pickett. Dan, say hello.
Hey, everybody. Here we go again.
I'm going to do that every time.
Numero quattro.
4. Who would have thunk it?
Yeah.
We have a great episode today, as always. And yes, I probably will say that every time because it's not a lie. We always have great episodes. And today is certainly not going to be any exception. As a reminder, our format in this podcast, and I think probably with 5, I'll stop doing this recap. But our format in this podcast is I'll introduce our guest. We'll get to know the guest. And then after that, we're going to take a position and we're going to all step up on the soapbox and share our burning opinions with our audience and try to poke holes in these theories and just have a good time with it. And at the end of the podcast, we're going to finish with a yes/no question to our special guest and see where it goes from there. So it's a lot of fun. We hope you enjoy them, and we're going to continue to do this whether you like it or not. So with us today, our very special guest, Misty Friedrichs from 3M Promotional Markets. She's the director of sales, and you can meet Misty on the Soapbox. So she's with us today. Welcome, Misty. Great to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So let's talk a little bit about you. Let's talk about 3M. Anything you want to share? What's cool that we don't already know about Misty? Dazzle us with some figures and facts. And I don't know, maybe you like to go skydiving on the weekend. I don't know. Let us know what's going on in your world, Misty.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan and Brett, for having me. I've watched a few of these and they are a great format. I love it. It's nice to get to know people through the dialogue. So I appreciate that. A little bit about me. So I am in my 15th year with 3M, and I actually started in customer service. I love customer service. I like serving people. I like solving problems for them. And as you know, especially in this industry, there's always a problem to solve somewhere. So I do enjoy that. Then I moved into sales. They took me kicking and fighting because I told them I am not a salesperson. I'm more about relationships. I like building relationships, and I didn't realize at the time really that that's what sales is, if you're doing it right, in my opinion. So I moved into sales, worked over there for several years, and then just kind of naturally followed the path through into leadership, became a sales supervisor. And then this last year, I got the chance to become director of sales. So now I actually oversee all of our multi-line reps out in the field for US and Canada. And then we have a key account executive team that handles key accounts, A-level accounts. Those all report to me. And then we have an account manager team too that I work closely with the director of account management for. So that's a little bit about
Did you just answer an ad and all of a sudden you're in the promo world?
Actually, funny enough, interesting. Before that, I ran a dry cleaning plant. So it was very random. My father-in-law had an ice company, packaged ice business of all things in Minnesota, mind you.
Right.
Is that like selling ice to Eskimos up there?
It is. We're a pretty hardy group up here, but selling ice. But now I will tell you, after having been in that business, we've sold it now, and I like a good ice cube, and I'm picky about my ice cubes. Like they have to be, yeah. Anyway, so I ran a dry cleaning plant. He had the 2 businesses, and I thought it would be a good idea to go work and run this dry cleaning plant. And man, I learned things. I got my boiler's license.
Wow.
Yeah, and now I'm very picky also about not having wrinkles in my clothes and a nice seam on the pant, start shirt, like the whole 9 yards. So very interesting. And then after a while, I realized that was not my thing. I loved relationship building with the customers. That was my favorite part. And being able to, again, solve problems for them. But I realized working for family is there's a whole different dynamic to that.
So I do have a technical question before we get off of the laundry thing. Why does one button on a dress shirt always get mangled? For me, it was the bottom button. Why does that happen?
It's the press. There is a shirt press, and it is when it clamps down and goes in, there is a metal part that always hits. And now a good dry cleaner or shirt presser would be replacing those buttons for you.
Oh,
so
Just
next time I'll go
throwing
to
that out there. You do that.
next time I'm going to Misty's dry cleaning. I'm not going to take my chances.
There you go.
so you go from
dry cleaning
dry cleaning business to one of the world's largest global companies, essentially, right? What is tell us about the promotional division of 3M, which is obviously this global concern. How do they view the promo space?
So it's interesting because I think, and that's probably one of our biggest challenges here with the team here. We're not a very big team. I have 5 key account reps, and then we have the multi-line reps. But 3M Promotional Markets is actually a very tiny division, like drop in the bucket division to 3M Global. I mean, everybody knows 3M and everything they've got their hands in. But I think it's a challenge for us sometimes because people expect, 3M's innovative. They are on the cutting edge for so many things. And we joke about how sometimes our division is last to introduce something. And so we have the same struggles I think a lot of people do with trying to be ahead. Sometimes we get too far ahead. Some of our products that we've released in the past, I think, got ahead of themselves, didn't do great, got pulled, and now we see them relaunched years later. Laptop skins is one of them, before people really had laptops. So there's a lot of unique challenges, I think, in being this small division of 3M. We get to work very closely with the 3M corporate team, but a lot of the decisions that are made, the selling, the billing, the customer service, all of that is handled right here in our small little division. So
well, it's interesting because 3M is such an innovative line, and our industry tends to lag behind what goes on at retail in many cases. So perhaps that was what was happening there with the laptop skins you're talking about, is you were just ahead of your time.
Very possible.
Until
yes,
well,
we like to think of it.
Yeah.
Well, and it's hard because a Post-it note is a Post-it note. Everybody knows what it is, and that becomes the challenge. A lot of times we hear, "Oh, I know what a Post-it note is. I don't need to set up a meeting with you." But what they don't see is all the things you can use a Post-it note for. And so we get excited. I just naturally love pens, paper, notebooks, journals. So I'm definitely in the right industry, but I love teaching people how else to use a Post-it note.
But I wanted to ask you one other thing along those lines, and I'm glad you brought that up. So we're in a digital age, right?
Yes.
So everything's, I got your calendar on your phone and everything's on your phone. So where does, what do you say to those people who say, "Hey, I don't need paper anymore," or, I don't use paper very much anymore?
Right. We find, and I'll tell you what, I like to say that I'm tech savvy enough that I know enough to be dangerous. My kids are like, no, you don't, you know nothing. But I have found, I've tried to go tech, and a lot of people do it just fine, but there's something about the written word, writing, and actually I believe there's some studies that show that when you write something, you commit it to memory more easily than if you're just typing it or you're reading it. So I would say, I don't think Post-it notes are going anywhere. I think they will always have a place, the custom printed, especially because it is a marketing piece as well. One of the biggest things we always make sure we share with people, we are not a sticky note. We are different from a sticky note, and we are actually designed to be different. It's and the adhesive is repositionable, so you move it place to place. So when you're talking, digital stuff, that's easy to forward and copy and all those things. But there's something about that written note, passing it along. That person passes it along, or you're moving it all over the place. And I just don't see it going away. Maybe that's a Pollyanna side of me that I don't want to see it going away, but I don't think it's going anywhere.
No, I don't. I think you're right. And there's, you love getting a handwritten note from anybody. I mean, it's so personal, and it really, it's great. So that's interesting. And I tend to agree with you. I think there's always going to be a place for the written word. And I remember, back when I was in college, I took notes just to do what you just said, just to remember what I was writing. And it really helped.
Yes, it helps.
Yeah.
I take it to maybe a crazy level. I have Post-it notes, and before I even worked here, I had Post-it notes that were all over my house. I'm a big list maker, and so I will add something to the list, and if it wasn't there before, just so I can cross it off. Maybe a sense of accomplishment, or I don't know what it is, or maybe I'm just weird. I don't know, but.
Okay, very good.
So what? I have a couple last questions on this part, but what's your favorite part of the promo industry? You have 15 years in now, so I would imagine you have some opinions on that.
I do. I think the biggest thing is the relationships. I think that is key in this industry. And I think that's what made this last year so difficult for so many people. I suppose in many industries, but my favorite part is getting to know people and then helping them find solutions. And sometimes that maybe isn't a post-it note. Post-it notes aren't my team's going to kill me for saying this, but they aren't perfect for everything. But sometimes you find yourself helping somebody figure something out that had nothing to do with your product. And to me, that's one of my favorite parts. I think we're a resilient bunch in the promo world. I think it's a unique industry and there's so many facets to it. I think that's the part that I enjoy and that intrigues me too. I love learning about people, reading about them, seeing what they do.
So now I'm going to help segue out of this part here. What do you like to do for fun? What's your personal passion?
I'll tell you, all I wanted to be was a mom. I got to do that. All my kids are grown. Last one's leaving the house. So baking, cooking, drinking wine on the front porch. I mean, that's really where it's at for me.
My wife and I just started watching the British baking show. I don't know if you watch that, but it is the most soothing thing. I fall asleep to it every night. It's so calm. People are nice. It's, it really helps lower that blood pressure. So yes. I've learned how to make a mean macaroon watching that thing too.
Oh yeah. I would be willing to try that.
All right. So let's switch gears now. And this is our segment where we step up on the soapbox and we share our opinions and really get to know what makes you tick, Misty. And we already know about Dan and I. I mean, we're twisted as could be. So let's get to know what makes you tick too. So I'm going to go first this week and share my thoughts. I'm going to step up onto the soapbox. Anybody who knows me well knows that I'm a bit of a music freak. I love live music. And, over the course of the past year, the pandemic, missing out on live music has been very, very challenging for me. Not only do I like music of all kinds, but I actually really focus my attention on one genre in particular, and that's the jam band scene. And so much so that I keep my little Jerry Garcia bust right here on my desk. I don't know if it's hard to see in the lighting here, but this is Jerry. And there we go. That's a little bit better.
Kind of see it. Yeah.
Yeah. Jerry's been with me for about 20 years, and they are considered the grandfathers of the jam band scene. And I maintain that the best musicians, the best rock and roll musicians in the world can be found on the jam band scene. They're improvising. Every night is different. They got to figure out how to play in the moment. It's not like they're memorizing a song and regurgitating it on the other side. I lived that. I was in high school band. I played in middle school band. I even played in some garage bands. I know what it's like to play the same song over and over and over again. But these improvisational jam band musicians are the best musicians in the world.
Is it easy for them to hide mistakes in their 15-minute jams or what? I mean,
the best part is you don't know that it's.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, that you wouldn't even know.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, it always sounds great to me. So that's what I maintain. And it sounds like it's a slam dunk for me.
Well, listen, I think you can debate that certainly, but I'm surprised you didn't show a little fish head thing or something. I mean, I thought that's where you were going with that.
Grandpa Jerry was sitting up there looking at me, so I figured, what the heck, Well, all right, I win that one, Dan.
You win. It's not about winning exactly.
Everything's a competition.
We're sharing. Okay, fair enough. Today, I am going to share about books. I'm going to talk about books. I don't read a lot. I'm not a huge reader, but I am sort of a nonfiction guy. I stick to nonfiction, and inside nonfiction, I like true adventure stories. My idea of taking a risk is like a regular Coke instead of a Diet Coke or something. But I look at these people that climb mountains and do all this other stuff, and I read their true stories in these books. And what I want to do today is just share the top of the heap, some of the best ones that I've read, and I'm going to stand on the soapbox and tell you should check these out if you like that sort of genre. I'm going to start at the bottom. Number 4 and 5 are written by the same woman, and her name is Laura Hillenbrand, and one of her books is called Unbroken. Tremendous book. If you don't know about this is about a guy that was stranded in the ocean for about 70 days on a rubber raft.
Wait a minute. That was Life of Pi, wasn't it?
No.
I was thinking Adrift, but yeah.
Close. She also wrote Seabiscuit, which is was an unbelievable book. The movie was pretty good too. Then we have the one that started it all for me, which was Into Thin Air by Krakauer. These are the guys that got stranded up on Mount Everest. Unbelievable perseverance and a tragedy, but a perseverance story. The other two books, at number 2 and number 1, I don't have with me because why? I let my friends borrow them, which is another word for never seeing those books again as long as you live. And one of them was called Miracle in the Andes. And there was a book back in the 70s called Alive that you might have seen there. That was kind of a famous book. This is the same story, but written by a person who actually survived this plane crash. And so they crashed, this rugby team crashes in the Andes. And let's just say they have to turn to cannibalism. Is that okay to say here on this podcast? Crazy story of perseverance. It's like inviting your friends for dinner, literally. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And then he had to hike over these mountains barefoot and the whole bit, crazy. But the number one book is this book called Manhunt, the 12-day search for Abraham Lincoln's killer. So it starts right at the beginning of this, and it's like a diary, a play-by-play of you're basically with John Wilkes Booth hiding in the weeds and all the stories that went along. Tremendous. So that's number 1. That's the only book I can remember reading twice because I loved it so much. Manhunt. That's number 1 on the list, and that's my soapbox moment. There you go.
Nice. I'll have to check those out. I haven't read them.
I've read 2 of the 5, and I don't read much either. So I'm impressed. I've read Unbroken and Into Thin Air, and I love them both. Unbroken, right? That was the name of it.
Yeah, Unbroken.
Yeah, I read both of those. But I will say, I do have to take exception to one of them, Seabiscuit. Now, I have a problem with that. Is this former New Jersey guy who now lives in Dixie? I will tell you that Seabiscuits are not the best kind of biscuits. Carolina biscuits are definitely the best kind of biscuits there are.
Dude, we're talking about horses here, all right?
Oh, totally misread that one. My bad. Misty, you're up on the soapbox. Let's hear what's on your mind.
Well, my thought today was totally different direction. I feel very strongly about fruit, cooked fruit, mixing foods that should not be mixed. I feel that fruit is meant to be eaten fresh off of a tree or wherever it comes from. Apple and grapes. And when you're talking biscuits, all I could picture was people that put raisins in biscuits. Or, and this goes, I hate to say it, maybe I'm not a true American, but apple pie. No.
Yeah, that's
the fruit is like smushy and limp and soft.
You use the term they're not supposed to be in there. What do you mean by that? As I bite into my cookie with a craisin inside.
No. The apple comes off the tree. You eat it fresh while it's crisp and juicy. Grape is nice and fresh and plump. The raisins just all wilted and then you bite into it and it's soft and
So we learned no more than 5 minutes ago that you like to bake.
I do, and I will tell you
that eliminates a whole lot.
What are you baking? That's a great question.
You like nuts and things, so chocolate chip cookies with nuts and caramel.
Hold on, they don't belong in there. What do you mean?
They're crunchy. Like think about that. They are crunchy. And really, I was thinking about this too. Minnesota, we're known for a hot dish. Yeah. Like mixing foods. Again, and my kids will tell you, most often when I cook, if it's a traditional hot dish recipe with vegetables in it, I usually, half the pan will not have the vegetables inside it. I will make my vegetables separate and eat them separate.
I've not heard the term hot dish before. Like
you haven't?
No.
Casserole would be another. I think it's more commonly known as a casserole, but in Minnesota, it's a hot dish.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, you just throw leftovers.
I learn something every week on this show. It's
good.
Well, it's kind of odd that you wouldn't have apple pie. I mean, frankly, that's the thing I can't.
Lemon pie.
Cannot process.
Lemon's my favorite, probably because there are no chunks.
It's a custard.
I've heard it. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So it's lemon flavor.
Pumpkin, you're not touching pumpkin pie?
Pumpkin I like. There's no chunks in it.
No chunk. So it's a chunk thing. It's a texture.
It might, yeah, but it's not rational either because I like cottage cheese. There's certain things I don't mind. It's just a weird aversion I have to cooked, maybe fruits and veggies. I don't know.
Well,
I feel very
let's
about it.
let's hope that this podcast goes far and wide, and you'll find other people, and you can create a Facebook group.
There's got to be somebody out there. Facebook, a support group. That's a great idea.
You lost me on the apple pie part, but all the other texture stuff, I could get that. Definitely could get that. So we found some common ground there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for shedding some light on an issue we didn't realize that we had here in America. So we do appreciate that. And like to wrap up our podcast today with a yes/no question. Are you ready for this one?
I'm ready.
All right, great. So we're all in business. We're sales, etc. We're customer service. That's where you cut your teeth. Yeah. Is the customer always right?
I am going to go with probably a very unpopular no.
It's unpopular as a consumer.
Wow.
Yes. And as a B2B business, it probably is not what everybody wants to hear either, but
I'm sure you could support this discussion. Go ahead.
This is perhaps a bigger soapbox moment.
Right.
Misty's setting a record here by jumping on the soapbox twice today. Interesting.
There we go. You got to beat that.
So tell us what you mean by that, Misty.
Sure. So I think there's a couple different points on this, that if we are just always catering or giving in, I guess is probably the better word, we lose the opportunity. If we are always giving in and saying, okay, you're right, we miss the opportunity to build a relationship, to teach our customers and empower them to teach their customers about how a process is, about how a product is produced, and maybe missing opportunities to show them better ways to do or sell different products. And I think in turn, that builds trust. I also think for me as a leader, I like to make sure that my team is empowered. If I say, hey, customer's always right, it doesn't matter what you say, that no longer empowers them to be able to say, you know what, I want to be able to give on this. I want to concede here, or, yep, this wasn't our error, but I'm going to pick up the cost anyway. I'm not saying we don't do that. We are really good about that. We have a top-notch group of people here that do that. But I think if we just always go on the assumption that customer's always right, you kind of are spoiling them too, and kind of getting into that entitlement hole, which is probably a whole nother topic for another day. But I guess that's kind of where I'm coming from when I say, nope, I don't think they're always right. Doesn't mean you can't work with them. You should work with them. But use the opportunity to teach them and show them. And
it could also, back yourselves into a corner, right? You want to under promise and over deliver, Right. So if you're over promising and yes, you're right. And then you turn around and your processes do not allow what's being asked, you're behind a rock. So there's that too.
That's a great point. Yep.
Excellent perspective. Anything else you care to add to that?
I don't think so.
You could say no. That's perfectly acceptable. Yeah.
Okay to say no.
Yeah. Is it? Okay, good.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being with us today, Misty. We really appreciate it. As promised, we delivered another fantastic episode as advertised. So
thank you guys.
I'm just going to dive into this crazy cookie again one more time, if you don't mind. Don't mind me, Misty.
Thanks all.
Go right ahead and eat and enjoy.
Thanks for joining us, everybody, and we'll see you next time on Up on the Soapbox.
Bye.